Alrighty, so this is Anakar with WPGN on our public text server again, and today we're going to be going over how to build a reactor. There's a couple of different types, so the first things you'll need to make are some reactor casing. You can put reactor glass in it if you want. If you don't want to, you can just go with the casing. You don't have to have the glass. The glass is just purely cosmetic, so you can see inside of it. The other things you'll need to make are yellorium fuel rods, a reactor control rod, a couple of reactor access ports, and a reactor controller along with a power tap. That's just to build the reactor. So, we'll start over here. Now, the dimensions that you can make these, I believe you can make a standard like 5 by 5, I believe. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a couple on the end. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, one on the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, one on the end. Oh, was I over too many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, nope. Alright. So, here we go, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's, yep. And then one on the top. So we'll do that. And this is just, I'll back up and show you the framework. That way you can get an idea of how big these things really are. Even the small ones are rather, space-wise, they're rather large. So we do this. Now the two different types of reactors are passively cooled and actively cooled. And a couple different things that go into that. It's kind of a pain. Most people just go with passively cooled, and there are different liquids that you can use to cool it, such as water, inderium, cryosium gel, stuff like that. And depending on which liquid you use, it will do a better job of cooling the reactor. So we'll set this up. We'll stick we'll put the power tap. It has to have the things that it must have. It must have a outside, which can be made of the all casing or part casing and part glass. It must have a yellorium fuel rod in it. It must have a reactor control rod. It must have access ports, and it must have a reactor controller and a power tap. If you do not have those things, then it won't work at all. Now the way you can tell that you built these correctly is when you get done building it and placing your blocks where you want them. And it doesn't matter where on the casing you decide to put the control or any of that, as long as it's there. You couldn't put it on, say, like the edge up here, but any side you could put it on and it would work. So, design it for your best convenience. So we're going to finish this up here. And I will go over just in a second how to do the fuel rod, because the fuel rod needs to be in the center and go all the way up to the top. And then you have to put the control rod on top of that. Alright, so we've got the three of our sides here, so we're gonna find center. So let's see, there's the center of that, and then there's the center of that. So we come in until we meet in the middle, which is right there. Now this fuel rod block here needs to go all the way up and be capped off by the control rod. See that? Alright. So we've got that done. Now we'll glass in the top, and this is a very very small reactor, and compared to some other ones. And after I will show you, some of the ones that not only I have built, but other people on the server. They've gotten quite big with them, and so on. All right, so we've got a simple setup here. Top's glassed in, sides are glassed in, and got the fuel rod with the control rod on it. Now we decide where we're going to put our controller. I find it easiest just to stick it in the center, put a couple access ports on it, and call it good. So now we're going to glass up. And the way that you can tell if it's going to, the way that you can tell if it's going to work or not is when you put the last block in, the texture will change. So we'll do everything but one block. Alright, so we've got everything that we need here. Put the last block in and see how the texture changed and there's lines in the middle. That means that the reactor is built correctly and will work. Now these are the access ports. This is where you put the fuel in or take the fuel out. I just find it easier to, one in, one out, so on and so forth. So that's how that works. So we'll pop in some uranium ingots, and we'll stick them in the fuel port here. And you'll notice that tube in the middle, the fuel rod, starts to changes color. That means that your reactor is now full of fuel. So then you come over here, you activate your reactor, see that core heat heats up, and it starts producing power. Now, I didn't cool this reactor, which means that the case heating, as it gets going, is going to heat up faster and faster. And one of the things that you'll notice is as you produce more heat, you start losing efficiency. So one of the things we're going to want to do is cool it somehow. Now the easiest way to fill these things up, let's get rid of all this stuff, is like you have a piece of glass, spare piece of glass, and look for the floodgate. This little doohickey right here. This is great. And then you just take a tank. I'll use a creative one for, building purposes, but what you really, really want is one of these resonant portable tanks or a one of the very high capacity tanks. And we're going to use water for this. So we get a bucket of water, and obviously, to fill the tank, you'll have to use more than one bucket of water, but that's okay. We're just doing this for experimental purposes now. Take your wrench, swap it to orange so it's outputting into the floodgate, hit it with a thing of water, and now this should automatically start filling the reactor with water. The reason that we use the floodgate is because it will turn all of these blocks and all the spatial blocks inside here into source blocks, and you don't have to worry about getting in there and trying to bucket click every one and get it all filled up. So you just give it a minute to do that. It'll turn everything into source blocks, and then you're pretty much good to go. And water does it pretty quickly. Gelid cryothium could take a little longer, but it's also a very small area that we're trying to fill in regards to reactors, because some of them can get quite huge. So this is almost done. It'll be done momentarily. It's actually filling rather quickly. We're using water to cool this, which is the lowest form of liquid cooling in a passive reactor. But it does an okay job if you're just running a little one like this. Power a few machines. Basics on what you need. So it will work. And after this is all filled, you can take your wrench. Yeah, and see, now that that's filled, we can take our wrench, take the tank off. I do believe that you have to break the floodgate block, but it'll give it back to you. So there, now we've got a water-filled reactor. So now, we turn it on, and the core heat's going to heat up relatively quickly either way, but you notice that the case heat slows down a little bit. We're getting more RF for our fuel usage because the reactor is able to stay cooler. Now, if you wanted to lower the heat, you could constrict the amount of fuel being used here, and it will lower the fuel heat, which will also lower the output, but it'll keep your reactor a little cooler. But passively cooled reactors, if you fill it up with water, and you're okay. So this is producing roughly 1,000 RF a tick. You know, it's a small reactor. It's not actively cooled. You know, so that's basically what you're going to get with one fuel tube. And now the other option here that we'll do is we will go in and we will put a few more fuel rods in there, and we'll see how that works out. So there's a control rod. Now on top of every fuel rod, you will need a control rod. So we'll add we'll add those. So there's another fuel tube. And we'll add one here too. We'll make it a 5-tube reactor, and you can see the difference in how much it generates based on how many fuel tubes you have. So we'll drop down here, add that. Okay. Now we add a control rod on top of each one of these fuel tubes. Now, the more fuel tubes you have, the more fuel it's going to use. See how it completely just sucked up all that yellow ingots. So we'll get some more of those. Grab another stack, and poof, there. Now we turn this sucker on. Bang, heats up, and now it's generating way more than it was before. So now we're getting almost. It's still climbing. Okay. We're going to get about 4.5, 5,000 RF a tick. Now it's being cooled with water. So it's like, okay, it's staying pretty cool. It's generating a good amount. Okay. So that's one of the ways you could do this. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this, like, okay, how irradiated your core is. Higher radiation you have, the slower the fuel burns up. And if you come over here and look at this is how much fuel you have, full versus depletion, generating waste, yada yada yada. Now when this generates waste, the waste will turn blue in these little bars here. And that's when you come over here, eject the waste, and it'll give you cyanide ingots, which you can then turn into plutonium, which are used to make other things. So that is a passively cooled reactor. I will be covering actively cooled reactors and turbines in a following video. Thank you for watching, and let's just pop over here to. Let's turn this off. Let's pop over to a couple places that have built huge reactors. Like, let's go to Yarmouth, my buddy John's place, and one of my flatmates. They've got, I believe, a 20-tube reactor. I'm going to go see if I can't find that. It's in here somewhere. This is their setup. They've got a lot of stuff going on. They've got a fully operational ME terminal and crafting system, along with a sorting system. There's a grinder for all their ores. They've got some laser stuff going on. Here's their reactor. One of, anyway. Yeah, okay, no, this is it. So here's their reactor. They're putting out 42,000 RF a tick, with a almost 500% radioactivity. Yeah, they've got a lot of power here. So that's their reactor. This is their oxygen collector, and this is fueled with liquid coriosium gel. Snow generating on top of it. But yeah, this is how they're producing their power. It is a 20-tube reactor. It is transporting all of the energy to, where they've got their machines and stuff upstairs, their ME terminal and all that, their laser drills. There's part of their ME crafting terminal there. Big reactor. Another one is my town here, and we're gonna fly over there and look at my system. This is my sorting system. Little archaic compared to theirs, but very efficient. Works very nicely. And here's the new reactor that I just built. This is a 25 tube reactor. It's cooled also, liquid cryothium gel. And this sucker, turn this on real quick, this produces roughly 61,000 RF a tick. Very efficient, very big reactor, a lot of power. Yeah, see, almost 61K, 60 and a half, somewhere in there. Roughly the same radioactivity, burn up rate, so on and so forth. Produces a lot of power. And I had a turbine built over here, but I have also found that the turbine produces nowhere near the amount of power that a reactor does. They're cool looking, and they do work, and you don't have to use a reactor to power them. Anything that generates steam can power a reactor, but they're just not, they just don't have the output that reactors do. I guess it depends on what kind of fuel source you primarily have. If steam's all you got, then by all means build a turbine. But if you got uranium to burn, then build a reactor. So that's how that works. You can build them bigger, you can build them smaller. How much power and how the heat is divided is dependent on where in the reactor the tubes are located. So like this is pretty even. It's got a 1 or 2 square buffer all the way around, 5 in the middle, all the way across. So that's how that works. You can play around with that. But yeah, that's reactors explained, how to build them, and I will be covering actively cooled reactors in another video. So thank you for watching, and I hope that helped everybody out.